So let's jump in. Can a business rely solely on word of mouth, which it seems like the Cheesecake Factory has, you said it was, 0.26 of their advertising. Can a business rely solely on it?
You can, absolutely. And there are businesses that rely completely on word of mouth. Skip's Kitchen is an example. Cheesecake Factory talked about in the book. Now, would I recommend that? No. I would not.
Perhaps if you have a genius within the company who understands the value of it and to write the narrative, so they're in theory the CMO of word of mouth.
Can it work? Absolutely. Should you assume that you don't have to ever do anything other than word of mouth? No, I think that's dangerous.
Right.
There are certainly companies that can exist and prosper and thrive even without doing much other than word of mouth, but that is the exception that proves the rule. So it's not necessarily word of mouth or other forms of marketing. It's word of mouth and other forms of marketing. The other thing is that word of mouth, by definition, tends to happen more slowly because we're saying, in this book in particular, it's not about going viral. It's not what we're talking about here. It's about individual customers telling individual stories to individual friends every day, week, month, quarter, year, and that's not a big bang, right? That's a trickle over time, and so the other thing I will tell you, I don't want to get too nerdy about this, but we also did a lot of research in the book that suggests that only about 47%, essentially 1 out of every 2, of your customers will ever tell your story, regardless of how good the story is. And that has nothing to do with you, has nothing to do with the quality of your talk trigger. It's just how people are wired. Some people will never tell your story because they're just not storytellers. Right. It's never going to happen. So best case, you got 47% of your audience talking about you, and is that enough to build a business? In some cases, yes. I just wouldn't assume that will happen.
It's a good point. That's like Malcolm Gladwell territory.
Yes, it's not the exact same study, but a similar idea when we did that survey. Because we were curious, when we do this kind of work for clients, and they say, well, how talkable is this idea? What percentage of customers mention it? And we say 38%. They're like, oh, that doesn't seem like great. It's like, no. It's 38%, 47% is the best you're going to do, right? So this is actually extraordinary.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm just going to point out in the forward a fantastic sentence you have here. Buying a primetime commercial is expensive but easy. Sparking a conversation about your brand among a network of loosely connected humans is cheaper but infinitely more complex. And you're right, I'm adding the word however. It requires patience, faith, and agility, not traits that traditionally have been valued in CMOs.
Yeah, look, word of mouth ain't easy. If it was easy, I wouldn't be on the show, right? If everybody already had a talk trigger, there
wouldn't be a book,
right? And
no one would have complained to you.
That's it. Yeah, it's not easy, but it can be really effective.
So we're going to jump into the meat and potatoes. You have here, create talk triggers. Section 4. Here we go. Mm-hmm. Section 4. Create talk triggers in 6 steps.
Yeah.
Maybe we could start giving a hack at it.
Yeah. You know what I'll do? It'll probably be easier just to describe it as opposed to go through all the 6 steps exactly per se. Here's the. Let me tell you. Let me do it this way. Here's the worst way to create a talk trigger. The very worst way is the way that everybody wants to do it, which is to sit in a conference room and brainstorm it. Mm-hmm. And that's not usually effective because if it was that easy, you'd already have done it. The other thing that's really true, and we sort of touched on this when I told you my story about Rockford Fosgate a few minutes ago, is that understanding what your customers expect is really the key to doing this well. So in most businesses, small businesses are different, but in most businesses of any size, the people in marketing don't really understand customers. They don't talk to customers. They're doing marketing, right? The people who know customers are sales and customer service. Those are the groups that are really in touch, right? So you got to have them involved as well. So the first thing that we do when we work on talk trigger strategy is, first thing is map out the customer journey. So you literally write this down. What are all the touch points, sort of the key inflection points that we have with customers? Well, first they find us on the website, and then they call us, then we call them back, and then we give them a proposal, then we have a proposal review meeting or whatever. Right? You map it all out.
Right.
Second thing, and this is incredibly important, do not skip this step, is you interview 18 customers. And it's 3 groups of customers, 6 each. New customers, long-time customers, and lost customers. 6 face-to-face or telephone conversations with each of those 3 groups. And what you're going to ask them, ideally you can even bring it on a piece of paper for them. You sort of bring the customer journey map that we talked about a moment ago, and you say, at each of these steps, what did you expect would happen? So when I sent you a proposal, what did you expect? Well, what I expected was that you would create the proposal as a PDF document. You would attach it to an email, and then you would send me the email. Then you would follow up with a subsequent email asking me for a conversation to review it. Right? That's what people would expect. Once you know what customers expect, you know, by definition, what they do not expect. And the talk trigger has to live in the place where they don't expect. Otherwise, it's not a story that will be told. So we're talking about this proposal, right? You're in B2B, as am I. Right. Proposal's a big thing, right? Right? Everybody expects you to get it via email. Well, what if instead you sent your prospect a sheet cake? Kosher, of course, and the cover of the cake, not the cover, but the frosting on the cake was made to look like the cover of your proposal. They have companies that can do that now. The proposal itself is printed out and put in a laminated sleeve, which is underneath the cake, such as in order to get your proposal, in order to access your proposal, your prospective customer has to eat an entire cake. Now, would that be something they wouldn't expect? Would that be a story that they would tell?
Both, absolutely.
Yes,
of course.
right? So first step, map your journey. Second step, interview the customers. Third step is create a list. Usually we do between 6 and 10, depends on the project, of potential triggers. Like, could this work? Yes. Does this meet the 4 conditions in the book? Yes. Could this actually work in theory? Yes. So you've got your list of semifinalist candidates, right. And then you pick one and you practice it. You try it. Also, do not skip this step, okay? You say, we're going to test this with every 5th customer, or only customers of this product, or only customers at this location, or however you want to. There's a lot of ways to segment that depending on your business, but you test it with just some customers, and then you measure whether those customers noticed it and talked about it. And you do that with a very important 3-question survey. Some people will associate this, attach it to a Net Promoter Score survey. There's other ways to do it, but it's 3 questions. Question 1. This is after they've accessed the talk trigger. Have you told anybody about our company? Question 2. What did you tell them? Question 3. Did you tell them any of these things? Question 2, you're looking for unprompted recall of the talk trigger. Right. Question 3, you give them a list, and one of the items on the list is the talk trigger. So that's a prompted, gauge.
See if they
gauge, right? And so that's a 3-question survey, and that's how you know if it's working. And if you get in the test case, if you see 15 to 20% talkable rate, then you know there's a there, and then you expand it to the whole company. That's the process. Right? So it takes, when we do it as a company and we come in and help people with it, it's like 90 days to do it right. Do the research, be thoughtful about it, so it's not going to be, have this done by Wednesday. It's just not, you shouldn't think of it like that.
Right.
Because again, this is an operational choice that you have to commit to.
Right.
For a while, right? So don't go crazy about this. Spend some time being thoughtful about it, which is why the book is very methodical at that point. That process is very specific for a reason.
I love the honor of interviewing C-level executives and sharing their great advice and perspective on Mind Your Business. I'd love to get your feedback. Post it in the comments below and subscribe. You'll never miss an edition of Mind Your Business.